My brother and sister are in grade 6, but it seems like only yesterday that I had to babysit them every single week while my mum worked. I knew she had to put food on the table, so I didn't mind helping out, but on one particular night, something pretty disturbing happened. My siblings were around 7 at the time, and I was 13, so I was at the age where I wanted to start having a bit of a social life. Instead, I was at home making Kraft mac and cheese for 2 screaming children. Since it was Friday night, I let them stay up until about 10:30, hoping that they'd be tired by then and would go to sleep without any hassle. By around midnight, I was playing my Xbox when my sister tapped on my shoulder, saying she couldn't sleep. She said there was a dog outside of her window who wouldn't stop barking. I followed my sister to her room so I could hook up my parents' noise machine to hopefully drown out the barking. But when I plugged it in, I noticed the barking seemed to be getting closer to the window, although something about the bark sounded really funny. It almost didn't sound like a dog at all, more like a person. When I looked at the window, I tried not to panic, but called to my sister, telling her to dial 911 and not to come in the room. I could see a man in his underwear standing outside of the house, and he was dressed up in this really strange dog mask. Thankfully, the window was locked, but I remembered I left the window in my own bedroom open, and if he noticed, he could get inside. I didn't want to let the guy out of my sight, so I shouted for my sister to go in my room and shut the window. Her and my brother were both awake at this point and were yelling at him to go away, but he nonchalantly stood there, rubbing his body against the window. He was definitely under the influence of something, but thankfully the police arrived within minutes before anything bad could happen. The next morning, when the guy was sober, he told the police he had blacked out most of the night, but he recalled attending a Halloween party, yet he had no recollection of standing in our lawn and harassing us. The police did find a knife in his shoe that he said he carries for self-defense, although I could tell from the look in his eyes that night that he very well may have hurt us if the cops didn't get there fast enough. It was 2 a.m. on a Saturday night. My brother Scotty and I were driving home from the casino since he had recently turned 18 and this was his first time legally gambling. Neither of us won, but we managed to at least break pretty even, and since we rarely do stuff together, it felt nice to be bonding again. The casino was about an hour away from where we lived, but there was barely any traffic, so we were thinking we'd make the drive in 45 minutes, as long as we didn't pass by any troopers. We had been on the highway for 20 minutes already, and seemed to be making good time. Scott hooked his phone up to the auxiliary cable and played a few songs, but after driving another 10 miles, we noticed the road ahead was reduced to 1 lane because of construction work. This wouldn't be much of an inconvenience since there was no traffic on the road anyway, and even though the speed was reduced to 55, I figured it would be fine to just keep going 70. Eventually, we caught up with a silver Honda Accord. Not only did I have to slow down, but this car wasn't even going the speed limit, which was annoying since we couldn't pass them. There was no license plate on the car, which is obviously illegal, and they were swerving, so my brother was suspicious that this person might have been driving drunk. After a mile or so, the road opened back up to 3 lanes, so I went in the middle lane to pass them. As we drove by, my brother looked over at them, expecting to see either an old person or some drunk college frat boy, but when he turned over, he started laughing. I only caught a glimpse of the guy, but I could see he was wearing white face paint. According to my brother, he was also wearing colored contacts that made his eyes look like they were glowing in the dark. My brother found it pretty amusing, but honestly, it gave me the creeps. I was pretty quiet for the rest of the way home. My brother figured the guy probably came from some kind of cosplay party, and while that would explain his costume, something else really bothered me about this brief encounter. and it somehow felt like we saw something we shouldn't have, even though nothing specifically happened to provoke this intense feeling. On Monday morning, the body of a 23-year-old woman was discovered on Highway 86. A hitchhiker had been walking by when they smelled her decomposing. They said it was likely a carjacking, since the white Honda she had been driving was nowhere to be found. I contacted authorities and told them I had seen a vehicle that matched this description with the license plates removed, although I couldn't provide any valuable information, not to mention millions of Hondas drive on that road every single day, so I'm not exactly positive if the car I saw had any significance to the crime. Whatever feeling I felt that night, I never want to feel it again. And even though I can't blame myself for what happened, I can't help but wonder if that sinking feeling I had in my stomach was my intuition telling me someone needed help. When I was 15, my parents left me alone for the evening when they attended a concert in another city, and I always enjoyed having the house to myself, so I didn't mind it when they'd go away sometimes. Since my bedroom was in the basement, I hated walking up and down the stairs to grab snacks, so I bought a box of Oreos down to my room where I planned on finishing my assignment for Algebra 2. I ended up surfing YouTube instead, and wasted an hour watching old compilations from Vine, but I noticed something pop up in my notifications that caught me off guard. It was a video that was only posted 15 seconds ago by some random channel I wasn't even subbed to, so I'm not sure why YouTube notified me anyway. It was titled "The Video That Watches You Back," and it seemed to be some sort of creepypasta. There was no thumbnail or anything attention-grabbing that made me want to click on it, but out of curiosity, I did anyway, since the video was only a minute long. It seems there was some kind of error that occurred when this user exported it, because the video was pure static, so I clicked off without thinking much of it. I did notice my dog's ears perk up when the video played, and after I stopped it, she was shaking with fear and looking at my laptop with wide eyes. I know dogs have sensitive ears and can hear frequencies people can't, so I don't know what disturbed her because I didn't hear anything that would have been upsetting to the dog. After I let the dog outside, I went upstairs to microwave a hot dog for dinner, but when I walked in the kitchen, I saw that the oven was on at 420 degrees, and inside of it was a pepperoni pizza from Tombstone that appeared to have just been put in there since the cheese wasn't even melted. It was 9:30 at night, and I thought I was home by myself, but then I noticed my sister's keys on the counter and realized she was home from her boyfriend's. Usually she would stay at his campus on the weekends, but she later told me he had plans for his brother's birthday and she didn't want to go with. After Angela went to bed, I went back to my room, where I watched a few more videos until I realized I was dozing off in my chair. But a new notification came up on the page from the same channel that I was notified about before. Except this time, the video was called "Watching You, Watching Me," and had been uploaded only a few seconds ago. I clicked on it to see if there would be a real video this time, and even though there was, the video itself was pretty dull and pointless. It was just a close-up of somebody's eyes, occasionally blinking but otherwise staring into the screen. What did make it sort of creepy is that when I tried to click off the video, my computer froze up, as it always does, so I was stuck with this face on my screen while I spammed Ctrl-Alt-Delete on my keyboard. When that didn't work, I held down the power button and shut it off. I was exhausted anyway, and it was getting late, so I figured it was time for me to go to bed. I slept like a rock that night, but when I woke up the next morning, I noticed something pretty concerning that I showed to my sister. There were wounds on my right foot that kind of resembled human bite marks. My sister agreed that these marks didn't look anything like bug bites. My parents came home that day, but I didn't show them the bite because I knew my mum would overreact if she saw it. Later that evening, I got yet another notification from the same mysterious channel. This time, the video was called Eating You Alive, but I wasn't bored enough to watch it, so I kept browsing other videos. I figured if I keep clicking on these that this channel will keep getting recommended to me, so this time I decided to ignore it, to hopefully get it out of my feed. My sister joked that these videos were cursed and they'd have to do an exorcism on my room, but she was too chicken to actually watch them, not that she was missing out on much anyway. The bite marks on my toe remain unexplained, but they were gone within a week, and I haven't seen a mark like that ever since, although it's a mystery what actually caused it. A few weeks later, I came across an article about a supposedly jinxed YouTube channel where multiple people claimed they had watched a video and random bruises started appearing on their bodies shortly after they saw it. Allegedly, the channel was part of a left-field study about whether the brain can produce physical injuries simply by hearing or seeing a hypnotic suggestion. Over the years, there has been some debate about whether hypnosis can affect the body's healing process and even control the way a person bleeds. So, in theory, this study was to observe if the mind can be tricked into creating wounds without any real trauma occurring. For a minute, I kind of believed this story when remembering the bizarre channel I had encountered. I tried to find the channel again, but I'm pretty sure it got deleted. Considering how virtually anything can be posted on the internet, I think I'm going to be careful about what I click on from now on.